Alright, so we just need to look at the plan, RTI plan, and figure out any changes that need to be made before next year. Several things that are not getting done like we are saying that they need to be done. And hopefully with my new position next year, I'll be able to do more of this myself and be sure that it gets done. But I'm sure I'll still need some help. So first, at the academic side of it, the reading and math. What do y'all think is going on in the individual classrooms as far as general classroom teachers actually doing remediation with students identified as RTI? Like in my case, I know who they are, and therefore I'll give them extra help and a little bit extra attention in class.
I don't think that, I think we know about our students, but we don't know the full range of their deficits in other classes.
Okay.
I know for a fact that small group instruction is going on.
Small group instruction is yes, but is it focused on the RTI kids?
That's correct. Perhaps maybe we can be more, are the teachers even aware of which students are into RTI just right off the bat instead of just blending in?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times I just take a whole group, not necessarily isolating, well, these are my RTI students. I do have a small group, but do they know the help that each student would need in regards to RTI? So maybe there could be some clarity.
Be sure we're letting everybody know.
Right.
And how many teachers assume that, Stride Academy is taking care of Tier 2?
Yeah, a lot of people do assume that, which is not the case. Really, that's just for progress monitoring. So is this is there PD we need to do? I know we've gotten PD on differentiated instruction in the past. Do you think all the teachers are doing differentiated instruction? It's a hard thing to do. I struggle with it. As far as making some kids do more work and letting others do less or less challenging work, stuff that it is challenging for them but may not be for someone else.
I don't think it's an issue with knowing how to do it or whatnot. Well, we've had the PD that teaches us how to do the differentiated instruction. I don't think that's the issue. I think it's just a matter of just time management with knowing that this group of students need it, and I'm going to be accountable for showing evidence. If I know that I have to show evidence when I'm doing it for this group of students, then I'm more conscious of, of those students. So
Evidence is a big driver to do stuff like that.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, I just think I used to have the same definition for differentiated instruction, is that you're trying to meet each student like where they are, kind of like, so maybe a more advanced student would have a more complicated assignment, and then you would structure it for. But at Common Core, their focus was making sure that the instruction is different. So you're not just doing lecture, or you're not just doing small group, you're varying the actual instruction. That was their take on differentiated instruction. And I don't know how many, I haven't seen all of us teach, so I don't know who's stuck in that one single file, this is how I teach, versus people that shake it up.
I think it's going to be difficult all the way around for all teachers. And it's not that we don't know, like Ms. Cofield said, differentiated instruction. We've already had PD on that. It's management, managing the time and what you need to do for this child and what you need to do for that child. That's difficult. And especially with the list that, we've come up with, this long list, when in the past, I think it's been a little bit more easier because you only had a few students that you were working with. Now we have just this long list of people that we have to be looking at and seeing. That's just really too much for all the teachers to try to keep up with, because the list is so long. In the past, we've never had a long list like what we've had here.
Should we change our criteria then?
I think we need to do something with the criteria, because none of us are going to be able. I mean, we've had this before, and to be honest, Mr. Lumpkin, we never really, it's never been perfect, should I say. It's never
Probably
been
never will be.
perfect. And it's not going to ever be perfect. So what we need to do is try to, find a plan to reach some of these kids who are say at the bottom, and try to, whatever their deficit is, and try to bring up the worst kid up. Because some of those kids are not really at the bottom, should I say, on that list. And we don't need to be wasting time, because we have other responsibilities that we have to do. And I mean, it's just gonna be hard for a teacher to find the time to, if you're saying differentiated instruction, okay, yes, I can set these kids aside, but then these that are in RTI, what am I doing with these? They need to be double set aside. Because you're gonna have to do differentiated instruction for all of them. I mean, that's what we do anyway for all of these kids, because no set teaching thing is working for every child. And I think our numbers are too great from what I have, and I've been on this committee for a number of times, a number of years, and the number of students that we have, we've never had that number before. And I don't know what the latest rules are, but the number of kids that we have is way too many.
Well, the number on academic may not be that many, but now we're gotta throw in behavior and attendance. And
Right.
that's the problem. That's why our list is so long, is because we got academic, behavior, and attendance now that we have to do.
So what are we supposed to be doing with attendance?
It goes back to, it's over here. It goes back to that whole, detentions for a certain number of tardies and, the early warning system
What do
and
we
things
do
like
with
that.
attendance?
I think
though?
what she's asking is like, what are the actual interventions
Right.
other than
Supposed to
monitoring
be-
and talking to kids?
Right here, the classroom teachers, talking with them, being sure that they're aware and motivating them to come to school on time. Do you consider detention and referrals intervention? But, and that's what, another thing I got on here is we're gonna split behavior and attendance up into two different plans next year, so that it's not as confusing. Right now, we got them both squeezed on this one thing, and it can be kinda confusing. So, and it also talks about pull out with counselor, administrator, and parent liaison. That's one of those things that isn't getting done like it needs to be, because as Ms. Odom gonna be pulling all these kids out that are missing 6+ days. That's a lot of kids that miss that amount of days. Maybe that'll be something I can help take over next year. But, any ideas on that? Any other interventions that we could do with students struggling with attendance issues? Besides what's in place in the handbook?
Well, excuse me, Ms. Comfort, which a lot of things I don't understand. Now, I take 2 students that I have first block in my homeroom. Well, of course, they're not doing the work, so therefore they can't pass. But what if they were doing work? Are they really gonna be denied their credit?
You talking about that as a deterrent?
Not necessarily as a deterrent, but do they really, I'm asking the question, do they really, get denied their credit for the course?
They had before, but I don't think it happens to every student that gets over 10. I know it doesn't happen to every student that gets over 10 absences.
Because I believe some of these kids know that they can come whenever they want to.
I think you're right.
So you saying that we need something stronger than D-Hall and something stronger than ISS or referral, whatnot, perhaps, some other type of?
Well, see, that's only for tardy. There's nothing for absences. We don't get detentions and referrals for absences. That goes back to the attendance policy I brought up in faculty meeting. It's better to not come at all than it is to come late.
Mhm.
Is the way they see it. Is there something we can fix in our RTI plan that might help that out? I mean, are we really gonna give them detentions and referrals for number of absences? It's gonna be a lot to monitor.
Is there some way we can do it, but if they're missing that many days of school, and depending on what type of student it is, they may not even carry through with any other punishment that we give. Could we do community service? Could we do, you know, something else?
They can do community service.
Yeah.
I guess my question in determining any of this is like, do we know all the facts? You know, there are some kids that are absent a lot that they have justifiable reasons, and it's like, so, and then when the kids mind, because they don't see the complexities of things, they just see, well, wait, I was absent because I felt like not coming to school, and you punished me. This child was absent because they had death in the family. They don't equate the difference there. They think it's all the same. So it's like, where can we ferret out the truth and make sure that it's whatever our remediation is that matches? Because, you know, I was a kid that was absent a lot, but I had good reasons. I was being taken on trips with my family to business things, and to me that's a good reason to miss class. But I had to deal with this as a high school student, where they almost didn't let me graduate because I had a lot of absences. But my grades were fine, my test scores were fine, you know, my behavior was fine. It's just that I was fortunate to go on a lot of business trips with my mom. So,
Is it possible that we could do maybe, the first 5 unexcused absences? I realize we can have a punishment for that, but then it'll make one area better, but then it may not fix the issue. For instance, if I have 5 unexcused absences while I'm going to Saturday school, if they are aware of that, well, now the kid's gonna be more apt to bringing in excuses, but I guess the following year, maybe we can come up with another plan from there, but at least we have something in writing, you know?
and this is what we talked about in the seminar. I like that. I like differentiating between unexcused, you know, the kid just has the freedom at home to not come when they don't feel like it, versus, you know, medical excuse, family excuse, something like that, that is acceptable. And then when it's unexcused, you know, just hey, this is the punishment. This is what happens.
So can we, put it in different categories? We have unexcused, we have excused, that means written by a parent, so many, and then we have medical. You know, because medical should be in its own
Professional excuse.
category,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
But say for instance, well, I have 5 unexcused, well, baby, you can't keep going on mama with her on her business trip.
Sure,
It's
right.
gonna be an action. I'm not saying necessarily 3, but it can be 5 as well, or whatnot. But I mean, because you have to come to school and learn
Mhm.
and everything, you know, maybe we can come up with that. Unexcused, excused, and then medical.
But I wonder if we can even do that, because that's why I think Ms. Boyd, that's what she was saying, that's district policy as far as what's being done for absences and tardies in terms of the punishment. I'll ask her
But
about that. I'll
As
discuss it
far
with her.
as RTI
I'm wondering
and
if
how
put
we
it in
can
RTI.
redo it, not that we would necessarily change the district policy, but even though it will show up, you know, here, ours matching there, you know, the
Is
regular.
is punishment considered intervention though?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like, if we say it's Saturday school, and normally that's punishment, but if there's actually instruction going on there, then it's just getting caught up. You know, where you're basically shortening their absences into, you know, a 4-hour window of trying to get caught up in all your classes. Like, to me, you could sell that. You know, where it's and for them, it maybe Saturday school is broken into 2 sections. One is, you know, I don't know, regained instruction time, and the other one is, you know, you've been an idiot, you get in trouble.
Okay, I'll discuss that with her, if we can do that, if that's even possible, but.
And as
I
far as-
think it's something that needs to be addressed.
I'm sorry. This is as far as the district policy goes. Like, yeah, I understand that there's a lot of hurdles to go through, but if we all see that something's not working, you know, and I'm saying if when we actually get into looking at the absences, it's not working, you know, there needs to be an effort to change things. And I don't know, my dealings with central office, they seem to be pretty reasonable about wanting to move forward if we find something's not working right.
Okay, so possibly change district policy or break it up at least. Okay. One more thing, I was talking to Melanie Riles, right? You know who she is?
That name is familiar.
Always very excited and talks a lot. There's our PD.
Oh, yes,
Oh, okay.
yes,
All right.
yes, yeah.
She was telling me, do y'all do STI benchmarks?
No, we used to.
Used to. That's what
Right.
I thought. She
Right.
said we still do. Maybe they do it junior high or elementary, but she was talking about how we still did it at high school.
Right.
But I was talking to her, and she said that we could do the STI benchmarks for reading and math in order so that we're not just saying, okay, this kid's struggling in math. We can say this kid's struggling with fractions. What do y'all think about bringing that back, a benchmark test, so that it's easier for us to identify specific skills?
Well,
to
in my
target.
curriculum, I don't necessarily teach basics, mechanics of fractions.
Well,
Yeah,
it would
so
be
for-
different ones for different courses.
Right, okay.
I love it. You know, if the child actually endeavors to do their best,
Right.
and they're rewarded for just trying to do their best,
Mhm.
and then I would love for their kind of like with Golden Scholar to do, you know, three times a year,
Mhm.
and then as long as we get that data quickly, then we know. I'm saying we know concretely where a child is and how they're developing.
So, yeah, they do have them for English 9, English 10, all of them for all the different math courses.
But I'm thinking that was part of the problem in the past with, I mean, we can get the kids in there to take the test, but reading the data. I mean, not really having the time to pick and pull. I think that's the issue with the other teachers as well.
That's what I'll be doing with
Uh-huh.
my new position, is looking at a lot of data.
Okay.
So,
So this would be pretty much something that's, you're saying that, okay, I need this, and then you're gonna analyze.
and then I will
and go
come to
from there.
y'all
Mhm.
and, you know, let everybody know what specific skills need to be targeted. And I wouldn't be doing pull-outs out of your math class. I'd be taking them out of other areas, you know, that we, or another area that they're not struggling in order to do that and get them back up.
And that's something else too. The ones that I had that have been pulled out this year, they don't want to go. I mean,
Right.
and that's a requirement, I know, and they know it is. But they really do not want to come out of the classroom to
Right.
go to, you know, Miss Nolan or, you know, the other lady.
Yep. Okay, so we'll see about bringing the benchmarks back.
And
That'll
this
help
year,
with
they
the
were
academic.
pulled out, just constantly, just pulled out, you know,
Oh,
just
pull
in
outs
and out,
this year.
in and out. Okay, when are they gonna learn the regular instruction?
Mhm.
You know, if they're constantly being pulled out, then, you know, that takes away from them, you know, learning what they need to learn. So it's gonna be a deficiency there, but then I guess
Right.
we're working on the other level going up, and then it's a constant seesaw.
What a lot of schools do to combat that is they have like the last 30 minutes of every day. That's like a 5th block remediation period. I don't think we can put that in place due to our already stretched schedule with the number of teachers that we have.
Some schools have the RTI, students stay after school. Like it's not an option, you know, that's just what you do, and
Yeah.
you know, I'm not saying that that's a solution for us, but I've read that. I would love to be able to work in, you know, a time like, cause I'm saying I would be willing to donate 30 minutes of my planning time
Mm-hmm.
to work with those that have deficiencies in reading and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, reading and writing and whatnot.
See, that's the problem though. Anytime they're in school, a lot of these RTI kids, they failed stuff in the past, so they don't have elective courses. They're taking 4 core classes and trying to get caught up, and that was the problem we ran into. There was no PE or band or anything else to pull them out of. We just had to pick, and their availability. Miss Nolan, she was only available for a certain time.
Mhm.
Hopefully, I'll be a little bit more flexible and can pull them whenever.
To me, I think like if we can get the kids to buy in because it's like good for them and we are caring for them and this is why we're doing it.
Yep.
And we make it like, you know, where there's like a lot of rewards and a lot of just for showing up and trying.
I agree with you on that. Not to cut you off, they
Yeah.
have to buy into this, because just pulling them out and then, you know, separating them from, because I'm just thinking about 2 of the kids that I have, which they didn't do much anyway, but to keep separating them out, I mean, he was just having fits.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, okay, you have to go because Ms. Boyd said that you have to go. You cannot stay in here. Y'all would just have to work that out. But having fits and to be constantly pulled out, you know, and you saying remediate or needing extra help on them, just like we do the special ed, we don't single them
You're right.
because you can't, by law, you can't single them out.
Right.
And you're taking this child who's not, you know, special ed, and you're singling them out saying that they have to go for remediation. They don't like it. They're not going to buy, they're going to have to buy into it for what? Because, or else it's not going to work. Those benchmarks, those tests that you're saying that we can do, they're not going to do anything on those tests. They're going to play with that test, and it'll just be us going into all this stuff that we do, extra work, when the child is not the key for it. If we want to make this work out, the key is for that child to buy into it, because if they don't buy into it, any tests, anything that we do, anything that the individual teachers do is not going to work at all.
I agree.
It's just not going to work.
I used to run a Read 180 program at a different school district, and I had a list of possible rewards that they could earn by showing improvement, because the kids were all like, "Oh wait, I'm in a reading class. What are you saying? I can't read?" And so I just had to make it where it's all about rewards. And every time they earned a significant improvement over their origin score, then they got it. And those that like improved by two letter grades, they got like this, you know, pretty cool T-shirt and you know, pizza party and stuff like that. And you know, the kids that bought into it loved it, and they thought it was a great time.
Do you think we should bring a like Read 180, or did they do AR for high schools?
I don't know
Like
about
about
AR
the
for
same
high school.
thing?
Read 180 is awesome, but it's expensive, and you basically would need a new class for that. So and I know you can get grants for the program, but you know, the school district that I was at, they got the program, and you know, like no one was doing it. Like some people out for training, and I finally said, why aren't we using this? And so I basically trained myself on it, and
Okay.
but that's a great program. But there's other programs that they can do. You know, it's just I was just talking. We just
That'd be
incentivize.
school-wide, really, right? Some of those you could do.
What they did is like Read 180. You just had a Read 180 class, and so what we did is we targeted the we looked at the assessment data and targeted the ones that were most likely not to pass the graduation exam, and that's what we went after. So, but my other thing is like, do we like for our rising freshmen and sophomores, do we have assessment data that goes on to that teacher where it targets what their deficiencies? So on day one, you know that this child has problems with in these areas. So as opposed to waiting, you know.
You're right. So we would need to spend from the junior high for the ninth graders.
Okay. You know, and then like for example, like I know, like I haven't seen any end of course test results. You know.
So just delivery of data to the classroom teachers needs to.
So we can break it down. You know.
You're right. Okay. That would help a lot, and that would help out the tier 2 instruction in the regular classroom a lot.
You know, and even if we felt like maybe the majority of teachers weren't going to buy into breaking down the data, or they felt like they had too much going, then you know, get volunteers that love breaking down data and you know,
The data man.
well, no, not me. I'm saying there's a bunch of people that would love to go after it.
Okay. Well, the last thing, I think we've covered academics, we covered behavior. Nope, we covered attendance. What about behavior? We have to do the behavior intervention plan. Y'all remember talking about that in our last meeting? We have to do those. And my idea is to go over it, have an early faculty meeting, the general gist of the behavior intervention plan, and kind of try to get teachers to do that with all kids, as far as, you know, following those things. I think a lot of those are good practices anyway, but so that they'll be aware of the plan, and then when we start getting, you know, referrals building up and things like that, we can just send out names and with them if something needs to be altered, if a more specific plan needs to be taking place, then we could attach that to the manual. And those, we could just send those out electronically.
And then also, like, if there is a high level of referrals for a certain child in a certain class, you know, maybe that's where you could sit in and see how the interaction's going, because sometimes I know me, like, as I'll have, what usually wakens me up is that, like, say Ms. Schofield will have no problem whatsoever with a certain child, but I feel like they're a living nightmare for me.
Mm-hmm.
When I notice that, then I'm like, okay, what am I doing wrong here in the
How you
situation?
setting that kid up.
Yeah, and then, so that might help too, to have an objective viewpoint where it's not like an evaluation, it's just yeah, I noticed, you may not know it, but when you're talking to so-and-so, you're like, hey man, how you doing? But when you're talking to the other person, like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, glad you're here. You know, and that tone, kids pick up on that tone.
Definitely can do that. But we also have to progress monitor
Mm-hmm.
behavior. And that was the whole idea behind the behavior rubrics we
Right.
tried to do. And I talked to Ms. Schofield about it yesterday. That's a lot of work to get all the sheets out to all the different teachers that kid has and get the teachers to fill them out and then collect them and then look at them. There an easier way we can progress monitor behavior.
Do you think we could try to send them out electronically? Look, at the beginning of the week, or however often we're gonna be doing it, but this is the rubric I need for you to fill out and send it back to me.
Okay.
I mean, part of the problem that I have with student of the week, I may send an email, but I may not get an email back. But, you know,
Yeah, I'm
like,
guilty of that.
that's fine. I mean, it happens because we're all so busy or whatnot, but I don't know. And I guess maybe I cut the sheet up the first time around. Maybe it needs to be a full form so that if we do keep it and put it in a notebook or something or whatnot, it'll be easier to maintain. But maybe we can try electronically with the student name at the top of it or something.
Yeah, we did that at the junior high. The year I taught that class over there, I had to fill one out every week for their RTI behavior kids, and it was a Google Doc, and
Mhm.
it had the name on it, and just had you put a letter in for each day, and each letter had
Got a code.
a different code or what kind of day they had. Now, but what I don't know is if anybody actually took those, sat down with them,
Mm-hmm.
and did anything about anything that was on there.
Right.
You understand? They sent them home to the parent each week via the kid. You know, I don't know how many
Yeah,
of those
right.
got home. So, okay, let's say we do that. What are our interventions gonna be for behavior besides, right now, obviously, detentions, ISS, things like that. But right now, we have kind of the same thing for attendance. Pull out with counselor, administrator, or the parent liaison. Just to have, I guess, a counseling session on their behavior.
I'm saying there's, you know, and I don't know how much, you know, how many hats we all can wear, but, you know, there's restorative justice where there's a student panel where, like, you know, for kids that are just like messing up with the classroom environment and kind of getting in the way of learning, they go before the student panel. They have a student representative of themselves. They have a student kind of prosecutor that presents the issues, and then the students decide whether it's, you know, like, is it like going to detention, or is it maybe some sort of community service? Is it a formal apology to the class and to the teacher for their behavior?
Is that legal to
Oh yeah,
put their behavior out on display like that?
yeah,
Like
it's restored. It's happening in a lot more
Really?
progressive
What do
school
they call
districts.
that?
It's called restorative justice.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking, if you let the kids be aware, look, son, I have to fill this out weekly on your behavior. You know, so, you know, I want you to do well. I'm watching you because I have to turn this in regardless, you know. And perhaps in the end, there could be some incentive where
Yeah.
there's progress or whatnot, because I want you to do well.
To come off, to actually be able to come off of
Right.
the behavior
Right.
list.
And like a student has to fill out their own log.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. Where you could, like, okay, man, I don't want to do this to you, but you gotta stay 30 minutes after school on Friday because you and I need to talk about how things have been going. And then they get their log out, you get your log out, and then have a conversation, compare it, and then, you know, so.
Yeah, I've seen it before where where the teacher doesn't have to keep up with anything, the student takes around that piece of paper and must get it filled out and signed every day.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Easier on the teacher.
Yeah. But then, you know, like to me, like, yeah, no, I hear you. I was just thinking that if it's, you know, where the teacher's doing their own and stuff, and I know we don't want extra work, but it'd be, you know, they have that conversation. So, so I see you're not having any problems on this day, but this is what I had. You know, what do you think about that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how is it possible that your teacher could think that you're disrupting classroom procedures and you're thinking that your behavior's great?
Right.
You know.
Question, what if we came up with something where if we have a behavior program, automatic, you know, you're free, but your freedom has been taken away because of your behavior, automatic, on this particular day, you have to stay in 15 minutes after school, or whatnot. Now, there's consequences. If you don't stay, it's gonna lead to something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
But this 15 minutes after, you know, because we hear anyways until what, 3:45 every day or whatnot. But this here is just reviewing, making progress. This is what I need to be doing, and what can I go back and change about this week or whatnot. And that way they're getting that counseling as well.
So like not a detention, like we have detention where they just sit in there, but a behavior counseling detention almost.
Right.
I like that, and it would be with the individual teacher that was having the problem.
It could be with the
Could
individual
be.
or a generic teacher
Okay.
that's willing to look over the
And it might be better that it's a generic teacher,
right.
you know?
Because they do have an issue with that teacher or whatnot, they're not gonna be open. You're gonna miss a lot of weeks not getting anything done because they're
Right.
not gonna be warm, they're not gonna be receptive to what it is that teacher has to say.
Because too many kids think that they're punishing the teacher when they don't do work, but they're only punishing themselves.
So with a teacher that student can talk to.
Perhaps. Or could this be something what the counselor does? You know, she's neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe something I can do.
But it has to be the right teacher, because there's some teachers that I swear they support any kind of behavior because they're trying to be cool, and I don't think that has any impact. Whereas, you know, I see Ms. Nelson. Let's come to Jesus, show me. And I see Ms. Cofield do that, you know, and I see some teachers that are just like, oh yeah, that teacher, I don't know, they're just too strict. I don't know what they're thinking. And those are the people that the kids flock to. And that would, if we have that person in that role, that would backfire.
All right. Anything else for behavior that we want to change or take out? Right now, we got all these timelines, 6 to 12 weeks, but that's RTI standards. I don't think there's much we can change there. And I'll work on splitting the behavior and attendance up into 2 different plans. But yeah, I'll type something up over the summer so that we have something to run off of a little bit earlier in the year. And so that hopefully we'll be a little bit more effective with this. Anything else?
I'll be honest, I don't even know the criteria for reading the map. How do we populate those groups? Does it say it up there?
Nope. It just says that have.
Identify, like how are we identifying, you know?
Either failing grades, which is not the best indicator, because
Right.
that could have to do with attendance or behavior. And so, and that's what some of our kids on our RTI academic list are, is simply attendance or behavior.
And we could fix that with STI benchmark.
Right, and we could definitely, yeah, exactly. But also with
Or the Aspire scores for
ACTs
rising
and
freshmen.
Aspires, and I have also used end of course testing
Okay.
to do that.
Okay.
But that's gonna be, as far as that stuff's concerned, that's gonna be getting together with the individual teachers and saying what's gonna be our cutoff.
Mhm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because if it's 60%, a lot of times it's gonna be a lot of kids in a regular English or math class that don't get 60%.
Yeah, no, it's a lot.
On
But-
one of those standardized tests.
But like, you know, that's the other thing I hate about the number where they say just 25, and that's their max. Like, well, what if you have 35 that need extra help?
It goes back to what Ms. Nelson was saying though, just work on the ones that really need it, which, you know, depending on our capacity, our personnel, if that's all we can do, I think that's best as well. And just build on it from there.
And if we would be better about identifying like actual deficiencies versus reluctance to learn, you know, because that's a different issue.
Right.
You know, I got kids that are very, very bright, but they just don't care. And why that kid shouldn't be in RTI? I'm saying that's one of the reasons they don't work is because they are I don't know, bored or just don't like the whole school concept. You know, so if we can just target the ones that want to learn and need help, that might be more fruitful.
Perhaps in the beginning, could we also, let these students know, pull them out, and let them know that these are our expectations, we're here to help you, and this is what we're doing, because are they clear, do they know the purpose why they're being pulled out? Do they know right off the bat? You know, you just called me out of the classroom, and I'm coming here, but it's almost like it can be assembly, that whole group, that's for reading, the whole group for math, what we're trying to do to help you, so that you don't feel that you're deficient. And then we're gonna have incentives. These are the rewards for, you know, you actively engaging into the program. Could we have a field trip to Six Flags or, you know, something that they're gonna like?
Right.
Let's go bowling, let's, you know.
You're saying like a meeting with all of them together and explaining them the expectation, explaining to them what it is. And you know, I think you're right, because that kind of ties in what Mr. Eichel was saying. You know, they have to buy into it. You know, because like I said, the kid that I was thinking about, I mean, he just really didn't understand. None of them really understood. Nobody taught. All they heard was just the list was, you know, you got to go here. You know, so somebody needs, maybe some letters need to be sent out to the parents explaining.
Well, that's done anyway, right? The letters. Whether they read the letter, that's another question.
Exactly. That's exactly. They say it's a long letter.
But that was, I agree. And then like make sure we don't use certain words, because like even though like for us like deficiency doesn't really have a negative connotation. What kid wants to hear that they're deficient, you know?
Struggling.
Yeah, right. So.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so make it clear why they're in there, and use that to motivate them to. Okay. All right. Something else?
Did we talk about any changes that need to be made where it will be less tedious for the upcoming year? But
well, as far as we got the electronic behavior rubrics, not paper ones.
But if we are, will we have, will the teacher and students do one, making the students more accountable? Well, here, son, take this to your teacher or whatever, or the student filling out one, or how do you feel that you did in these areas? And then the teacher, they can compare, where it can almost be some type of discussion. I don't know, because I know we mentioned electronic, but then someone else mentioned where the students could be more accountable, where they have to fill one out for themselves each week.
And I'm more talking like instead of just checking in boxes, like a student writing a narrative, like a paragraph about how they did that day. You know, because like that to me that's where they're actually going to open up, and you can see some of the definition and create some model paragraphs. You know, where you know, like if you know, for a kid that had a really bad week, like this is, you know, like you know, I told the teacher
So would it be a daily log or a weekly log? Because we're teachers going weekly, but if it's up to the student wouldn't do it daily, where it's almost like they have a daily journal.
But I think it's I like where it's actually like, but it's positive. It's like it's everything. They're just going to record all their interactions. You know, I picked on so and so, and I didn't really need to do that. I don't know why I did that. It just kind of.
Now, who's holding them accountable for this? The individual teacher?
Well, I think that you pick a teacher that student has, like one teacher that student has, and that teacher just says, okay, let me see your log. Okay, check it off that they did it, and then what's the next step if they didn't do it? You know, okay, well that's D Hall, so you can get your log caught up for the previous week. You know, or it's okay, so this is warning one that you didn't keep up with your log. You know.
And the question is, how many students will we have on this that we're talking about doing? Because
what you're talking about is a lot more work than the behavior routes that we try to do in business.
right.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a lot of work. So maybe we can build on it, start with something simpler.
I just want something that's like where the students can see there's benefit to improve. You know, and if they don't see that there's benefit to improve, because you know, because like kids that are really rough around the edges and have trouble interacting positively, well, that's their environment at home. So they need to see what's the benefit of working nicely with everybody, you know, and refraining from making that comment because it gets in the way of the learning. And if they're not gonna see that benefit, then you know all this is really just we're doing it because it's RTI, not because it's actually working. That's just my concern. Because I'm sure if we all think about all the kids that have been on RTI for behavior, I'm saying how many successes have there been? You know, and that's across every single school district. I'm saying, and I hear a lot of teachers saying, "Well, this is a bad kid because it was going to be like that," and that's not always the truth. You know,
We need to explore some other behavior intervention options that would not put a lot more daily responsibility on the teacher, but that would help the student see their behavior and track their behavior and see the benefit of it. All right.
it's almost like the first step is just getting them to admit that their behavior can
Mhm.
improve, because there's so many that are like I had a chess piece that was broken the other day by two kids that, you know, people would argue that they're good kids, but they could not admit that they did it. And it's like, how can you just not admit that you did something? You know, like.
Question, if they did do the journal, could that be something that's discussed in that 15-minute, when the student is meeting with the counselor or whatnot?
Okay.
So just read from your narrative, you know, what's going on this week. And then that could just be a simple question back to them, like, okay, so I'm glad you identified that, you know, standing up and going to another table and grabbing something off someone's desk is not a good idea. I'm glad you noticed that. Now, what are you gonna do to prevent that in the future? And then say, hey man, have a good day. You know, just, I don't know. I think it would work, but again, the thing is it has to be buy-in out of all the students.
I think that's our key word, that we got buy-in. We need to do a better job of
And
let them know what it is, why they're in there, and how it's gonna benefit them.
But the key with that 15-minute counseling session, with it being after school, that if you make it so many meetings, then you're gonna be out. So you want your freedom, you don't wanna come here, I don't wanna be here as well, but we're gonna make the most of it or whatnot. So what am I gonna do so that I can leave with everyone else? Because at this point, I gotta make arrangements to get home. Either walking or parent come to get me or something or whatnot, so it's a sacrifice as well.
Well, let me ask a question. What if they don't show up?
Right. Then it's,
And, like they do sometimes for D-Hall,
right.
sometimes they don't show up.
They don't always show up to Saturday school as well.
No,
And it
they
becomes another issue, you know.
And then, so are you gonna say, okay, if you don't show up, you know you're supposed to come to this, I'm gonna give you D-Hall, or give you ISS, or give you a referral,
Well,
you're not showing up
right.
to this counseling
Well, I guess
session.
part of that would be part of that incentive in the end, the big reward. Who wants to take, but that trip to Six Flags, that big
Yeah.
trip. You know, I'm scratching you off. You got so many stripes.
So
Yeah.
letting them know up
Demerits and-
front,
yeah.
this is what we're going, we have something
Mhm.
really planned, big, you know.
Right.
you
Because
know.
a lot of them, they don't ever make it to the pizza party
Yeah.
for honor roll and everything. Or they make it for not going to ISS or whatnot. Some, you know, depending on what they're on here for or whatnot. But they don't benefit from the other rewards that we have.
And then we have to flip it, because you know how the scripts beginning of the year tell pretty much all teachers, like, okay, y'all have 100% A right now. You know, it's your job to maintain that. Well, we gotta flip it for these kids and say, okay, you're at 0 right now, but every time you earn a merit point, you know, you get closer to that end of your trip, but you gotta earn this many merit points.
Yeah.
And this is how you earn merit points, by filling out your log weekly, by filling out your log honestly weekly, you know, by it matching basically what your teachers are saying about your behavior, that we're seeing improvement, you know, that you're, you know, like even when they can't make a meeting, are they finding that teacher out and say, hey, you know, I know I'm supposed to be here after school today, but this is what came up, I can't be here. Like to me, that's huge merits. Like, you know, give a bunch of bonus points for that, because, you know, how many kids don't do that? They don't use their words to articulate, hey, I have this real reason that I can't be here. They just don't show up. And then, you know, like to me, that's another life skill.
I like the merit points, because one thing with big trips like the Six Flags, that's great incentive. But what happens when a kid gets scratched off of that list in October?
Mhm.
What is their motivation the rest of the year?
Mhm.
Can they earn their way back on that list? You know,
And I think like
I like
honestly,
the merit
the
points.
only nuclear bomb would be if they like violated a law and were sent to lockup or something like that. But like if it's all like, you know, so for example, like, you know, and then set it up where, so they get an ISS for fighting, you know, or out of school for fighting, like how many merit points do they lose? But they can, when they get back, they've done their time, you know, then they can earn them back, you know. And I'm just, you know, I think that's something.
I like the merit points. That's a good idea. Because that's what you know. That's what happens to us. But when they lose their exemptions, because okay, there's my
Right.
sixth absence, I might as well be absent
Yeah.
5 more times.
Right.
Because I can't be exempt.
Well, it's the same thing with our not renewing it as semester break, you know, well, I've already gotten this, so why not get it a bunch more times, you know?
Right.
You know?
So let them earn it back.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay. Anything else?